If you're thinking about downloading the latest single by your favorite artist online, Ottawa wants you to think again. Changes to the Copyright Act were introduced on Parliament Hill yesterday to crack down on Canadians who illegally download copyrighted files. Now, the proposed amendments are targeting everything from copying CDs to unlocking cell phones. So to help us understand the changes and how they are going to affect people in this city, our technology columnist Jesse Hirsh. Good morning.
Morning, Jane.
Okay, this is pretty complicated, but we have been waiting for these. We knew that these proposed changes were in the works, but how long have they been working on this?
Well, initially the government was going to introduce this bill in December, and they thought nobody was interested in copyright, that it was just a boring issue. But there are a lot of kids out there explicitly who realize the benefits that they're getting with our sort of very loose and liberal legal environment when it comes to copyright. And the fact that this is a rather draconian crackdown on Canadian culture, I think has alarmed a lot of internet citizens, a lot of activists. So in December they rose up, the government retreated, said they were going to retool the bill, which basically means adding a little propagandist sort of language to make it look like it's balanced. And now they're introducing it right before Parliament ends for the summer, again to curb debate, to make sure there's no committee hearings, to make sure there's really no opposition to this bill. So unfortunately, if the Parliament comes back in the fall for a very brief session, it could get passed very quickly.
Okay, obviously Jesse thinks it's a bad thing, but first explain what it is, what the consequences will be, how are they proposing this is going to work?
Well, there's still a lot of people going through the bill as of yesterday, and they're finding a lot of contradictions. But at its base, it introduces penalties for copyright violations. These violations might be, and I don't like the distinction upload-download, because that shows the ignorance of the authors of this bill, that there is no upload-download anymore. When you want to download something, when you use a torrent, it automatically uploads. So really sharing is the right word. Right. They want to penalize people for sharing. They want to penalize people for breaking usage agreements on technology. So if you get a cell phone from Rogers and decide when you travel you'd like to use international companies, you can't unlock the phone. Even though technically you could, legally you cannot. Similarly, if you buy media that has digital rights management or a lock on it, and you remove that lock, let's say because you have a new player and you want it to play on your new player, that's against the law. So it's really far sweeping in terms of taking copyright violation before, which was really kind of gray in the sense that every Canadian broke copyright laws. But we had levies in place to remunerate artists, remunerate publishers, so that there was some balance. This eradicates that balance. It basically criminalizes millions of Canadians who don't realize they're breaking the law but are just sharing culture. And now this really creates, dare I say, a climate of fear in which the people who have copyright are so terrified of the internet that they're creating penalties and deterrents to stop Canadians from being innovative, stop Canadians from using the internet.
I'll argue with you about that it'll in a bit, but just for those who may still not quite understand what this means, it doesn't mean you're going to be in trouble for downloading songs that you buy from iTunes onto your iPhone.
You could. The issue is if you download that song onto your iPhone and then let's say play it at a party, that's against the law.
Oh, that's it's okay. I didn't think you could find an argument for that one.
The fine print in this bill demonstrates the ignorance of the authors of it. That not only do they not understand the internet, but they don't understand the way copyright is changing innovatively. And there's lots of companies that agree with it. For example, the Coalition for Balanced Copyright, which includes all the ISPs and telcos in Canada, as well as Google, they're against this bill. The Canadian Software Innovation Alliance, headed up by Bob Young, the Hamilton Tie Council, with lots of software companies who you'd think would be, have a financial interest in protecting copyright, are also against this bill. It seems the only people who are in favor of this bill are both Hollywood and pharmaceutical industries who have a very real need in protecting their copyright against the market. We write off auto workers. We write off the manufacturing sector. We say, if there's a downturn in the economy, tough luck.
Get used to it, get another job.
Lose your job. But not Hollywood. No, we're going to protect Hollywood. The Canadian government is going to create legislation that allows Hollywood to continue to get profits on stuff that, I'm not saying artists shouldn't get paid, but certainly the industry needs to shift. The market is correcting it. And here we have a government that's supposed to be about less government actually introducing more regulations to punish Canadians for being innovative and sharing culture.
But there are musicians, and some are not, with big companies who are independents, who feel when someone takes their song, makes their own little music video and puts it onto YouTube or whatever, that they should be paid for that.
I'd like to have those people on Metro Morning, because all the independents that I've met are actually profiting from the internet, are actually benefiting from the fact that they don't have to go through the big labels anymore, that they can get their music directly to their fans, make money on concerts, make money on merchandise, and people still buy their records because they sample it. by downloading a song or two and saying, wow, I love this artist. I'm going to find them, I'm going to subscribe to them, I'm going to tell them I know that I love them, and I'm going to give them lots of money because I believe in culture. But if you don't have that sharing in the first place, how do you find these independent artists?
Okay, let's talk about unlocked phone, because there's certainly lots of people who've gone up to Pacific Mall and they bought their iPhones because it took so long to get them to Canada because of battles that Rogers was having over the kind of cheaper programming that was being demanded by iPhone. But so what happens to someone if they unlock a phone? Can someone take? I know, but can someone take it away? Can you get caught? How would anybody know that you had an unlocked phone?
Again, there's contradictions in the way that this bill has been written. So right now it's penalties. So let's say you unlock that phone, either the manufacturer of that phone or Rogers, as the service provider, could lay a complaint against you and you would be fined. The fine for unlocking one phone for the user would be pretty small. But let's use the Pacific Mall example. I love the Pacific Mall. The Pacific Mall is going to be in incredible trouble if this law passes. And the reason they'll be in trouble is all the VCDs that are imported from Hong Kong. That would be illegal because the copyright protections wouldn't do it. All the phones that are being sold there, many of which would be illegal because they're designed to be used in Hong Kong. So here you have the Chinese community in Canada. It's unbelievable the punitive damage that they would face if this law goes through. Not because they're breaking the law, but because technology allows them to look at Hong Kong media and to exchange Hong Kong media and to resell Hong Kong media. We accept that as perfectly legitimate, but this law would not. And there's lots of other diasporas in Canada that would be affected.
There's also stolen media being sold. I mean, this is stuff where people have taken video cameras into theaters, and you go to buy what you think is a DVD, and you get it home, and you find that it's not in English, it's on PAL. And
if this law just addressed that, no one would be complaining. Right? The issue here is not theft. The issue is fair use. If this just targeted criminals, then no one would complain. Rather, this criminalizes Canadians. It takes millions of Canadians and says, you know, you're sharing culture, but you're wrong. That's stealing, and it's against the law. Now, granted, if we had enforcement and everyone stopped doing that, it wouldn't be a problem. But they're not going to stop doing it. They're still going to keep getting culture from the internet. They're still going to keep unlocking phones. They're still going to be taking DVDs from Europe that legally you're not allowed to play here in Canada, and they're going to play it because they can only get them in Europe. We can't punish people for that. We need a balanced law. So I'm not going to say I have a better law, but I am going to say copyright is so subjective, so contentious. We need consultation. We need debate. We need all different sides of society to talk about their interests rather than just one or the other. And that's what this bill has meant to reduce, to eliminate, to not allow any debate, not allow any discussion. And what I fear is that the pirates are going to take this as a declare of war, and they're going to eradicate copyright. And they're going to eradicate copyright by introducing what's called a bright net, in which anything you put on this network is there permanently. So you can't remove it, you can't do anything, and you can't trace where it goes. So rather than copyright, which I believe is legitimate, to have a balance, instead now we're going to have a culture war, in which the forces of copyright and the forces of piracy are going to leave us in the middle with either penalties from the government or no remuneration for artists and publishers, neither of which is viable. So one last thing, and I realize I'm ranting. The war on drugs created gangs that control so many neighborhoods in this city. The war on copyright is just going to make kids into criminals. And these kids are going to start sharing music the same way they were, but now they're going to go underground. And I don't think that's really the smart thing.
Okay, thanks for coming in. Our technology columnist, Jesse Hirsh, he can be reached at jessehirsh.ca. And if you'd like to comment on what you just heard, which I think you probably will,